They do not matter. Big old golden retriever. All my favorite things. We would not be coming back from that. Oh, she pains me at times. Hey y'all, it's Nat. I hope you're having a terrific day today. And for this video, we are going to be doing a NetGalley reading vlog. Alrighty, so before we get into anything bookish, make sure to hit like and subscribe down below. And you gotta tell me in the comments, are you excited for these books? Are you adding them to your TBR? Let's talk about it. So as per usual with these reading vlogs, shout out to NetGalley, the publishers, the authors for free copies of these books in exchange for honest reviews. I was very excited going into both of them. Starting at the top is one that I saw the synopsis of this and immediately knew I needed to request it because this sounds so up my alley. Dearly Departed by Chip Pons. This is a queer romance where we're following a character that's supposed to be like a play on Hades, who has been banished to the human world to work as a funeral director, which is kind of hilarious, honestly. But unfortunately for him, the super peppy, happy florist moves in next door and starts his own business. And I think the two kind of clash, but of course, at the same time, there's a ton of chemistry there. Again, this sounds absolutely adorable. It is a queer opposites attract romance story. So that right there, up my alley. But then throw in this like Greek mythology element of it. That sounds so fun. On the opposite side is actually one that I requested for my Buns and Roses TBR jar challenge. I was lucky enough to get a copy. The Great Outdoors by Kayla Olson. Listen, the setup of this is basically Legally Blonde goes camping, and I am all over it. We're following 𝗖cie, who unfortunately for her ends up getting broken up with by her boyfriend for being too high maintenance. And so kind of in an effort to show him he's wrong and prove to herself that she is not too high maintenance, she ends up doing a backpacking trip into the Sierras. And while it's definitely filled with things she was not quite ready for, she also was not prepared for her sexy guide, Thorn. Another opposites attract plus forced proximity, all my favorite things. And without further ado, let's roll the vlog. Hello, my loves. So I've hit 20% into Great Outdoors and I'm really liking this already. Literally from the prologue chapter, I was like, okay, Legally Blonde, very reminiscent, reminding me of early 2000s rom-com with like a lot of girl power energy. I'm all over this. I'm really liking it. 𝗖cie, the female main character, is so enjoyable, though I've never gone backpacking like this, but as somebody who has done a fair amount of hiking and also gone camping, I will say, oh, she pains me at times, and she pains the hero character too, which is a lot of fun. I really like the foiling of their characters together, and I think they play off each other really well, which has led to some very easy chemistry, and I am really into that. Even if, again, 𝗖cie sometimes makes me want to put my head through a wall because, babes, what do you mean you're going on a 12-day backpacking trip and you didn't bring hiking shoes? I'm still not over it. I didn't really think about it, but also the interactions we're seeing 𝗖cie have with some of the other group members has also been interesting, particularly because there's a engaged couple in the group. They definitely seem really reminiscent to what 𝗖cie and her ex probably would have been if they did this backpacking trip together. So that's been really fun to kind of watch 𝗖cie react to it. I don't super love that she's like a content creator and using this for that. I don't think it's really necessary in the grand scheme of the book, if I'm being honest, though it does allow for this interesting multimedia feel to it where occasionally we'll have like a little excerpt that's actually her like filming an update. And on the opposite side with Thorn, we actually just saw a chapter where it's actually like his hiking journal and kind of him recording things about the fellow campers, about things he sees on the trek, things he thinks his dad would enjoy because his dad was the one who really got him into the outdoors and hiking and stuff like that. So I really liked that too. I thought that was very cute. We have not really seen much drama with Thorn's background because unfortunately his fellow co-lead on this backpacking trip is this dude who was previously his best friend that basically ran away to Peru with Thorn's girlfriend. So I am very prepared for like some dramatic moments, and unfortunately these two are just giving each other the cold shoulder, and like it feels very true to dudes, but at the same time like I want to watch this shit play out. So for right now, I'm really liking this. It's very much reminding me of an early 2000s rom-com in like the most positive way possible. So I'm hoping I love this because it is starting so strong. Well, hello again, friends. So I've actually hit about 45% into the Great Outdoors and I'm really enjoying it. I just love a character who is fueled by spite, specifically with like this kind of setup where she's doing so in order to spur a crappy man who I have just recently found out is actually crappier than we initially see. I'm even more cheering for Sadie to manage through this and actually come out the other side. Maybe possibly even liking hiking. That would be great, actually. I would really appreciate that arc for her. On the opposite side, I also just really like Thorne's character. Everything we've learned about him is making me enjoy him more and more. I'm really rooting for him as a character as well. I feel like his life right now is actually very relatable. He feels stuck with his current situation, but he doesn't really know what it is he wants to do next and like what opportunity he wants to jump at in order to make a change that he will be happy with. It's very clear that the possibility of a jump is going to come in the form of Sadie, but he is so reluctant to do so because of having been burned previously in his last romantic relationship, but also just the entire nature of their relationship currently, because he is a guide and then she is one of his trekkers. I'm really enjoying it, honestly. It's very cute how he's just having a hard time resisting her because they just have such easy chemistry. So I am definitely continuing to really enjoy this one. Every time I pick it up, I'm just like so excited for what new drama is going to happen next. Between like Sadie again trying to spite her ex, Thorne having to deal with his prior best friend who stole his girlfriend, and then now there's like some additional drama going on with other people in the trekking group, which is kind of mirrors Sadie's situation. And so I'm guessing that's going to kind of prompt her to be a little bit more introspective. But I also really like this thing that has connected Thorne and Sadie so far is Thorne is a journaler and he has prompted Sadie to try and start doing it as well. And I'm also really a big fan of that angle. It's very cute. So yeah, this is going swimmingly. I figured I was already here filming for this vlog. Why not go ahead and pop in another update? I can't wait to keep going. Hello, my friends. So I finished out The Great Outdoors last night and I really liked this. It was so cute. Just across the board, I will say I really loved the character work that was done in Thorne and Sadie. I think both of them were very, very well created characters. They really hopped off the page. They had such well-defined personalities, like fears, backgrounds that have created them into the people they are today. And then like, I feel as though each of them do go on a pretty solid character arc throughout the book as well. I don't want to say this is necessarily a problem, but I do feel like I wish this book was a little bit longer so we could have gotten more of the actual romance developing in a way that felt more serious. I'm always more of a realistic romance reader. Like if there is a very short time period in the story, I have a hard time believing that two characters fall in love that quickly. And I will say Olson did not have these two dropping L-bombs after like 12 days of knowing one another. So that was very refreshing. If anything, it did feel like by the time we reached the end of their journey, it was very much just they had finally found somebody. They felt like that actually saw who they were and were interested in a romantic relationship. But given the circumstances of that Sadie lives in Texas and Thorne lives in California, like reality was just kind of preventing them from really trying to like take the jump and make a relationship work. Simultaneously, I actually really like how this was done, but because of it at the same time, like I don't know if this felt like a fully fleshed out romance book by the end, I guess is how I'll say, because at the end of the book, it didn't feel like these two were in love. And I never really felt like I had been swept off my feet with their romance. In fact, I really wanted throughout the book, anytime they were having these like introspective thoughts about themselves, I really wished we were like seeing them share those with one another. And I think it would have made the more like emotional intimacy being built between the two of them. Like I said, it's not necessarily like a con, but it is kind of just a difference when it comes to a romance book, I guess I'll say. The third act conflict saw coming from a freaking mile away. Conflicting feelings about how it worked out because I felt like for the most part, these two were usually pretty good about being open and communicating with one another. But I did really enjoy how each of them thought through what happened after the third act conflict and started to understand the other person's perspective of it, so that whenever they finally did fully communicate and like let the walls down again, it felt really natural and like they had reached that point in a really authentic way. As far as like Thorne's whole background with his friend Mateo, I'm not gonna lie, Thorne is a far better person than I am, because if I had somebody who I called my best friend doing this amount of crazy, ridiculous, dangerous, and just like straight out insulting to me stuff, we would not be coming back from that. So whenever they kind of have their like final heart-to-heart come to Jesus moment, I wanted Thorne to be going off on this man. I wanted it so bad. But it made sense for the character. It was very realistic. It was very mature. So I finished out this book and honestly, it was just like, that was absolutely adorable. Unfortunately, there was no spice, which is not my fave. I would prefer if a book even has like a little bit of something, but this is really only like an occasional makeout. And so, like I said, with my complicated feelings about their relationship, I really went back and forth on what I wanted to rate this. But across the board, I did really like this book. As I said in, I think, my first update, it made me think of an early aughts rom-com that had like a lot of girl power energy to it. And I was just so into it. I loved it so much. I really did have such a good time with it. I think this is a really strong 4 stars. I'm intrigued to maybe try out more of this author's work, but like I said, I do prefer my romances to have some spice to them. But the character work alone was very impressive and definitely has me curious to try more of Olson's stuff in the future. Hello, my friends. So I have started into Dearly Departed. I'm probably about like 35% into this now. Okay, so starting from the top, we like jump both feet in right from the get-go. Like there is barely any setup. You just like immediately are dropped into these characters' perspectives and their lives, and like you kind of got to figure it out. And that does include world building, which honestly, I have to say I actually am liking that, how he's like slowly unfolding the world building that we have here. I like the bits we've seen of Hades or Hayden, but that being said, I'm a little worried that so far his characterization is pretty stereotypical. Like it's nothing outside of what I would imagine for Hades's character. However, we're finally starting to like get a little bit beneath the surface and see how, first off, he has come to live in this life as a mortal and a funeral director. Second, the drastic change that living this life has had for him. And we've had little references to things throughout his mortal life that have also made him such a recluse and like so protective of his identity and his heart by extension. And so the more we're getting to learn of him, the more I am enjoying his character. I like seeing those deeper layers. On the opposite side with Levi, pretty immediately I was into him. Big old golden retriever, just full of sunshine, absolutely spunky and hilarious. He has 2 best friends and I really like watching all of them play off one another. It's just tons of banter. And whenever Hayden is within the group as well, he like plays along with it in this way that matches the energy, but is like a lot more dry and sarcastic. And that was so much fun. I really enjoyed it. We know Hayden is Hades. We've now heard him mention his brothers, Zane, and I think it was Preston, which I did think that was very funny. We've also met the 3 Fates, who are now women that actually work at the local government. They have traded in judging lives to now judging paperwork. And I just find that so amusing. Hayden also has a pet cat who is named 𝗖cie, which I didn't catch on at first, but like 𝗖cie as in Cerberus, that's cute. In any sort of story that has a similar setup, I feel like it's always him with a dog that's named Cerberus or something that's a play on Cerberus, but I actually really like having him own a cat, especially because his personality here is far more cat. Though I would say pretty across the board, I feel like you would assume Hades is much more of a cat person. Honestly, I thought we were like building up to some spicy scenes rather quickly, which I had conflicting feelings about because I was intrigued to see how this other spice is going to be. But at the same time, like I didn't feel as though we were really there yet. Instead, it ended up being this like great heart to heart moment and really started to build out the like emotional intimacy between Hayden and Levi. And I'm really liking this. I'm liking it so much. I cannot wait to continue reading it. It was a little bit of a trial to put myself on pause this morning because I knew I needed to film an update before I kept going. Otherwise, I was just going to like blast through the rest of the book. I am intrigued as far as like the plot, where that's going to go. Like obviously we do have the romance itself, but like is there going to be any sort of a bigger thing going on as far as like the fantasy thing, Hades being a Greek god? I'm not really sure. I don't know where it's going yet, but I'm in for the ride. Hey y'all, so I'm probably around like 60-ish% into Dearly Departed and I'm really enjoying this. I do gotta say, I feel like as far as I guess I'll say like fantasy plot line goes, it's not really much of a fantasy plot line. Like if anything, I feel like this is very almost cozy in the fantasy elements because really the main focus is very much the romance. And the romance I'm enjoying. This has gotten pretty spicy and I will say spice is definitely spicing. I do appreciate the fact that given one of the characters is Hades, there's like some shadow daddy energy going on here. I would probably give this like 3 to 4-ish chili peppers, but across the board, I'm just really liking it. It's very cute. We also got a really great scene where we kind of learned a little bit more about Levi and saw that there's even more to his backstory and why he's kind of, I'm not gonna say like scared of funerals, but he's like very avoidant when it comes to grief and loss. And that hasn't really been dived into any deeper yet, but like we just got a little bit of it. And it's one of those things where as soon as you learn it, it just connects with everything else we've learned about him in a way that was very, very authentic. So I did appreciate that. There was also a scene that was, it's not hurt comfort, but like it's kind of hurt comforty. And in that, it really just reinforced for me that this feels like I'm reading fan fiction and I'm all over it. I really like it for that. It is very bingeable. It's very readable. I'm not surprised that I read so much of it in my last sitting, honestly. I basically was laying on the couch, and even though we were watching something, I just couldn't help myself. I had to keep reading it because I was enjoying it so much. Oh, right. And then another thing I wanted to talk about as far as the cozy aspect, there's a lot of just like small town vibes to this, kind of in line with like Gilmore Girls, where there's all of these local events and things that are being held, and it just really is reinforcing the small town feel, which is very cute. And again, whole like kind of cozy fantasy aspect of it. I'm curious because of I don't know if I want to say confrontation, a realization that Hayden has, if the fantastical elements are even really going to matter, because he's kind of realizing that he's been holding on to this flame for so long to maybe reverse the retirement that he's taken or find some sort of a loophole to like get back some of his powers, stuff like that. And now he's realizing it, is that actually what he wants? And so I am curious how that's going to continue to unfold, and also to see more introspection from Hayden's character in regards to that, because he kind of had the realization and now he's sort of like stuffed it down and is trying not to think about it again. So yeah, across the board, this is so much fun. I'm really liking it. It's very cute. Hello, my loves. So I've officially finished out Dearly Departed by Chip Pons, and this was so freaking cute. This actually kind of had me thinking, wait, do I like cozy fantasy? Because this definitely feels like a cozy fantasy. So many of the scenes and situations that happen in this book just feel very much like a cozy book because there are no stakes. They do not matter, but it's all vibes. It's all happy-go-lucky stuff. However, I realized, no, because if the romance was not happening, if the romance was not at the forefront of this story, I still would not care about it. The romance element is definitely what made me enjoy this book so much. I think Hayden and Levi's characters were fantastically created, and I think they are such perfect foils for one another because their personalities are very, very different. But Pons does this really phenomenal job of breaking them down layer by layer throughout the book to the point where you realize they actually have so much in common, and it makes perfect sense why they connect so deeply. It's just the fact that like both of them have created their personalities in very separate directions off of the thing that makes them similar. And because of that, I was so freaking invested in both of them finding their happily ever after, in the romance that was happening here. I will say, as far as like the third act drama goes, I could see that coming from a mile away. And at first I was almost concerned that Pons was like way overdoing it, because I just did not catch on as to why the characters were reacting in this way. Why were their reactions so extreme for this situation when it could very easily be explained with this like one line? And then I will say he actually did a great job of talking about it and expanding upon why it actually mattered so much to the character, why it was such a problem. It made perfect sense for the characters we had watched been built out. Honestly, big claps to him. The fantasy angle like really is not super strong here for the most part. Like this basically may as well be a contemporary story just with like Greek gods thrown in, but it was really fun. We do also have the fates, but apart from them, everybody else is just like a normal person. I think honestly, the only problem I really had with this book is I feel like sometimes it was a little overwritten. Some situations, particularly whenever the characters were like being introspective, I really felt like I was kind of hit over the head with it, to the point where it's like, I got it. I've reached that point. You don't have to keep hand holding me and repeating it in different ways. That was one problem I did find myself having towards the end of the book. I'm going to try not to be spoilery with this. So much of this book is happy-go-lucky, is very easygoing. And like I said, it does kind of feel like a cozy fantasy-ish, like cozy romance, I guess. But there are some hard-hitting themes going on here, some heavier themes. And I think the way Pons was like working them into the story and into each of the characters did kind of require some like tell, not show. But again, sometimes it felt like it was a little too much and it was really trying to hold my hand. And I did not super love that. I I also felt like pretty much every character apart from Hayden and Levi was honestly like kind of two-dimensional, almost a character archetype sort of thing, even for like Zeus and Poseidon's characters, though this did feel like it did a play on both of the characters that are very like popularized in Greek myths. When stripped down, they still felt like very similar to any other rendition I have seen of Zeus or Poseidon. Hayden was really the only one that I felt like was really well layered and different and kind of stood out from some other renditions I've read of Hades. So for some of those reasons, I don't think this is necessarily a new favorite, but I did still really enjoy it. Like, the romance is so freaking good. The character work is fantastic. The vibes are definitely there, so strong. And honestly, it was a pretty original setup, I will say. Plus the spicing. So I think for this one, I'm going to give it like a 4.25 star kind of thing. Like, it is a very strong 4-star. I liked this more than a traditional 4-star, but I don't think I can quite put this to like a 4.5 or 5-star for the issues I was saying. So, but even still, really liked it. And apparently I need to check out more of Chip Pons' work. On that note, that's officially it for today, y'all. Thank you so much for coming to my channel. I really appreciate it. Make sure to hit like and subscribe down below. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, we gotta leave a sunflower emoji down in the comments. Sunflowers are very important and dearly departed, and they are also one of my favorite flowers, so feels perfectly on theme. I have links to all of my socials as well as a few ways you can support me down in the description. I come out videos on Monday and Friday, but until then, I hope you continue to have a terrific day. Love you, bye!